Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the October 7th, 2021 Smyrna Municipal Planning Commission meeting. I'll call the meeting to order, and with that, I'll have Mike Allen lead us in prayer, and Tim Slate will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll stand, please.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for another beautiful day you've given us. Father God, just thank you for the rain that we've received. Father God, just continue to lead, guide, and direct us in the city's business here tonight. Father God, just be with our first responders and all our people in the hospitals as they continue to deal with the pandemic. Father God, we just love you and we thank you for the opportunity to serve our town. Father, just lead, guide, and direct this committee in all we do. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike and Tim. Citizens' comments.
None tonight.
Okay. Our next agenda item is approval of the minutes of September 2nd, 2021 meeting. Counselor, are the meeting minutes in order?
They're in order as to form.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the commission? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the meetings. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. On to new business. Our first item is a rezoning request from Matt Taylor, northwest corner of Sam Davis Road and Nissan Drive, rezoning R1 to C2.
Yes, this is a rezoning request, R1 to C2. It's for a portion of map 27, parcel 6, about a little over 4 acres of that. Currently zoned R1, proposed zoning of C2. Surrounding zoning is a mix of C2 and R1. The future land use plan would support kind of a mix of open space as well as the office, retail, multifamily in this area. Major thoroughfare plan does designate Nissan Drive as a principal arterial and Sam Davis Road as a collector, and those streets there's adequate right of way on both of those streets already. This is a portion of the Sam Davis home property. This is the corner of that area, and they have requested this rezoning to be able to potentially sell this as commercial property. Applicant is here if you have any questions. That's all that I have.
Questions for Kevin or staff?
Kevin, is this just right now general, or is there intended use? Do we know?
I think there's not a specific intended use. They have told me they will be restricting it on their own, not through my zoning standpoint, but have requested C2, but they are going to deed restrict and limit some of the uses that are allowed in C2 that they would not like to see there. Those are private restrictions that the town wouldn't be enforcing or anything like that, but I don't think at this time there is a specific intended use, though.
Kevin, the surrounding zoning at this intersection is C2, so
Yes.
from a town planning perspective, are you content with this?
Yeah, this intersection has 3 corners already zoned C2, and so it is consistent with the zoning and consistent with our land use plan. So I have no issues with this rezoning at all.
You did say a representative was here.
Yes.
I'm sure there may be some additional questions that maybe just with a discussion, if I could have the representative step forward for this project. If you give us your name and address, please.
Good evening, Matt Taylor from SEC, 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I've also got Mr. John Harney he's actually on the board at the Sam Davis home here as well. So either of us can answer any questions that you might have.
I guess from myself, and I think maybe from the town's perspective, being where this is located, there's going to be naturally some questions about what the purpose of this is, and maybe some of the specifics behind this rezoning request for this parcel here.
Yes, sir. So there's been, I think over the last couple of years, the Sam Davis home has really figured out that they have quite a few upgrades or repairs that they need to do, and it's just more of a financial burden that they can bear. And so they have seen this out here at the corner as an asset that can potentially help fund some of those repairs without being detrimental to the house itself or the rest of the property. As you and Mr. Rigsby just indicated, everything around this is already C2, and so it's not a big change to the area. And this location is about 1,900 feet from the house itself, the house proper, which is where all the activities go on. So about 6.5 football fields, to give you a little perspective. So, anything else there, John?
Yeah, if you could come forward and give us your name and address, please.
My name is John Harney, and I'm actually a trustee on the Sam Davis Memorial Association. And 2 or 3 things we probably need to clarify. Number one, back in 2018, the state agreed to a private act to transfer this 4 acres at our request out of the state holds the Sam Davis home and plantation as a state property. But they agreed by private act back in 2018 to transfer this 4 acres out to the Sam Davis Memorial Association with the Tennessee Historical Commission's approval, which we went through about a 1.5-year process with them. The purposes of this is to raise money. We need to spend probably at least $400,000 alone on the house itself. And we've got 14 other structures on the property. A lot of them built before 1850. Certainly a lot of them have been built in the early 1900s. But even though we've had some capital campaigns, we have just not been successful in raising near the kind of money we need to to take care of the property that we're challenged to do. And this was a way, and we petitioned the Historical Commission that we'd like to put this up for sale. Now, as Matt said, we're going to be pretty critical of what use we sell or who we sell to on this corner with some private deed restrictions. So, if it's a use we approve, we don't want somebody to buy that and then turn around and sell it for a use that would be detrimental to the rest of the property. You can't see this site standing on the steps of the Sam Davis home itself. It's over 1,800 feet away. There is a pretty good sized pine tree line right behind it, but we will require a buffer across the back of that 4 acres as well. But this is just an effort to try to raise some money to take care of the facility. And this has been a long process to get to this point to do this, and I can't tell you today who the buyers are, but we're going to be careful that it would be a commercial use that would not be objectionable to at least our board, in the interpretation of the rest of the property.
Okay, well, it sounds then like you and your board's put a lot of time and effort into this, and I am hearing that you want to make sure that the use that you guys deem appropriate will be placed there, and it will not be detrimental to the home itself or the rest of the property.
That's certainly our intention, and this has been about a 3-year process just to get to this point, and I can't say if we'll sell it in the next year or the next 3 years, but we're going to be discriminating about who the buyer or what develops on the property.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Harney?
I've got an aerial here that just sort of gives
Sure.
the general idea of how far away from the actual home site this actually is.
Okay.
Hey, John, I just have a couple of questions for you.
Uh-huh.
Is this 4-acre tract all that the Sam Davis home is expecting to sell? Is this encompassing
Yes,
of
this is
the
the
overall
only thing
project,
we
or do you have other in works?
No, this is the only thing we can sell. This was transferred from the state's holdings to the Sam Davis Memorial Association for this purpose, but we have no right to sell any of the rest of the property.
And do you, are you or the home putting together any particular site plan on this, or are you just going to market it to a buyer and let them see what their plans are?
Well, number one, I'm not going to represent the property, even though I'm in the commercial real estate business, because I don't want that to appear to be a conflict of interest. But from a design standpoint, I would expect very well maybe a 1.5 to 2 acre user on the corner and maybe another lot beside that. We would want that alley loaded if it's 2 lots, so they can both get back to the light. But we'll want screening behind the property, so whatever gets built there, there's additional screening as far as from the view shed looking back toward the home.
But your expectation is the size of that lot, that there could be more than one?
Could very well be. I mean, I can't tell you for sure who the end user is, but I would be surprised if it's one 4-acre user. I would be more expected to probably be turn into a couple of lots.
Other questions?
I'm assuming that they'll continue to put corn or cotton or something in that field between there and the house anyway?
Yes.
And that'll add to it
Yes,
as well?
we'll continue that. That's part of the interpretation of the property. It's been a farm, and
Right.
we want it to continue farm operations. But yes, that will be going on in between.
Also, access, would that go in on Sam Davis? Do you know?
That would be up to site plan approval of you, how it goes in. But we would want, rotation around so anybody using that site comes out and can come through the light.
Is Nissan ours, Kevin, or,
It's a state highway.
so that would have to be a state approved anyway?
Right, so
which would-
highway entrance permit, as far as out on Nissan Drive, I think the city of Smyrna controls the Sam
Sam
Davis
Davis
Road.
Road. Okay.
John, it's nice to know that the trustees see fit to do this, to raise the funds to make some needed improvements over
Yes.
at Sam Davis, and also the integrity of the home and the property is still being maintained. It's quite a distance from the house. I don't think you'll even see it, but I can't think of, from a dollars perspective, you guys need quite a bit more money than that, most likely, continue to maintain the home and the outbuildings that you've got over there, I would think, don't you?
Well, we do, and of course, every year, I'll admit, it's a struggle raising the budget, because, COVID's been tough on us the last couple of years with all that going on, but as long as I've known about people on the board, everyone's intention on the board and the trustees has been to preserve it in the best possible manner and take care of it with the funds we've got to do that. But we get very little funding from the state, and it's just, most of it's raised by donations and raised by the fees of people attending. Of course, schools, various people come and view the property, but it's tough. There are a lot of things that need to be done, but primarily, most importantly, it needs to be done on the house.
Yeah.
Anything else for John Ways up here?
I just want to thank you and the board for all the efforts you've put into this.
Well, thank you.
Really appreciate it.
It's a great piece of property and an interpretation and history that we need to preserve. So,
Thank you, John.
thank you.
Okay, we've heard from staff and we've heard from the developers here. Is there any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve with staff comments.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next agenda item under rezoning request is Randy Sexton, Sharp Springs Road, rezoning R1 to PRD. Kevin?
Yeah, this is a rezoning request. Property is currently zoned R1. It's about 6.5 acres. The proposal is to rezone it to a PRD. The surrounding zoning is a mix of R1 and R2. The future land use plan would support low-density residential in this area. This proposed PRD is for 27 single-family houses. The major thoroughfare plan designates Sharp Springs Road as a local street. Adequate right-of-way may exist, but if not, at least 25 feet from the center line would be required as a part of the development of this property, and they have shown that in their plans to show that right-of-way dedication. We had a few comments. One, we'd ask them to provide dimensions for the fire truck turnaround at the end of the main street. It needs to be at least 120 feet, and they have dimensioned that to 120 feet. We had, comment number 6 was to widen Sharp Springs Road to at least 22 feet in front of the property, beginning, essentially, as part of the Jefferson Pike project, the Sharp Springs Road location is going to change some. And so, we've asked them to basically, from the end of that TDOT park project, where they're relocating that portion of the road, from there back to the northern part of their property, to widen that road to at least 22 feet in width, and they have shown that on their plans. Number 7 is really kind of an informational comment, and they have agreed to this. Gravity sewer may be available here. It may work, but if it's not, the developer will be responsible to upsize the lift station that already exists on the north corner of the property to provide adequate capacity. Number 8 was a staff recommendation. We did recommend then to add a sidewalk along Sharp Springs Road. Eventually, there is going to be a sidewalk put in along Jefferson Pike as a part of that project, and we did recommend a sidewalk to connect. Eventually, we connect there. There is another property between this track and Jefferson Pike that would have to come later. They have not shown that, but they have shown a connection to the trail system on the west side of their property to the trail system within Sharp Springs Park as an alternative. And we did, number 9, we did ask them to revise the rendering. The rendering on page 1 reflected a layout that, the layout changed between kind of the first time we looked at it and the second time. This proposed PRD is a little bit different from the standpoint of it is all single family and detached single family. However, the streets will be private, and the houses will not be on individual lots. It will be really developed and sold and treated like almost treated like a horizontal property regime townhome type project. But as far as how it's sold, but it will be all detached product. And so it is a little bit unique to what we have seen in Smyrna from a single-family perspective. They will be, all for sale and that sort of thing as well. They have a pattern book that shows kind of the layout, the type of houses they're proposing, and all that as well. It's is there in front of you. I think that covers everything at this time.
Do we have questions for Kevin or staff?
I do, Kevin. Your first comment, second comment, future land use plan will support low density residential in this area. Does this classify?
Yeah, this is a little over 4 per acre. Under our comp plan, 0 to 4 is what we consider low density.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
There's really nothing around this property other than the resident that faces Jefferson Pike, if I recall, so, right?
And then the town's water plant facilities.
Yeah. Yeah,
To
but
the
no
north
other
and across the
residential
street.
are
Yeah,
affected by it.
there is a vacant undeveloped tract directly across Sharp Springs Road. It's just woods right now.
Right, so there's really nothing to say, hey, we'd like to keep it consistent with
Right.
that, okay.
Of course, in the park, or the town leases the property to the west from the core as the park there.
It has a double entrance, so to speak. It has a split lane entrance and a separate lane coming out. So is that comfortable for fire safety?
Yeah, we made that comment to them that they had to have the minimum width in those entrances, and they have, again, they've shown that on their dimensions, that they would have the minimum fire code widths for access, ingress and egress through that area.
And I
Again,
think
it
you
is a
mentioned-
private road, and we'll have a gate across it, so they'll have to, same as we have with our gated apartment complexes and all, they'll have to have the device on the gate for the fire department to be able to, either the Yelp device or whatever those options are for them, to be able to come in there if they need to.
And the cul-de-sac and the hammerhead are adequate?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I read that even though it's a private road, it will be built to the standards that we require on public roads. Is
Yes,
that correct?
it'll be built to town standards as far as the base thickness and all that, as well as the width, yes. And just to address, I know a lot of times with these types of developments, we talk a lot about parking, and they have adequate parking in the driveways, as well as, of course, they have the garages, but they have adequate parking in their driveways, and they also have quite a bit of parking in a couple of different locations, additional for like guest parking and those kind of things.
So from a parking setback or parking perspective, rather, staff is satisfied that it's adequate or more than adequate enough to
Yes.
take care of not only residents, but as far as visitors as well?
Yes. They're gonna have essentially the garage is gonna have an additional setback. It's gonna be 35 feet to the garage, kind of what we've had on some of these others. The house itself may be closer to the road, but the garage will be 35
Okay.
feet, and it'll be a double width. So you can park 4 cars in their driveway, plus the guest parking.
Okay.
Kevin, I have a question. As it relates to the guest parking, they're kind of in the curve. How comfortable are you with that from a safety perspective?
Yeah, in a curve, you might have a little bit of concern. I think this is such a small development. There's not enough room for folks to really build up a whole lot of speed coming through a neighborhood or anything like that. I'm not too concerned about, people backing out into the traffic or anything like that at that location, because I think it's gonna be such a low traffic street. It shouldn't be an issue.
I see that this is a product too that kind of is designed to meet some of our senior style living, which is always a plus for me.
Kevin, is staff recommending approval subject to staff comments?
Yeah, I would, yes, we would recommend approval. I think really the only real issue still to be looked at is the sidewalk issue. Again, they have requested to, in lieu of that sidewalk along Sharp Springs Road, to make that connection to the west there. I think that's something, the only concern I have about that is it's on core property, and is there an issue with that? I have no idea. It may not be an issue, but the Corps can be very picky about their property, and we have a lease, and that sort of thing. We do have the trail that's very nearby there that it could connect to. That would be the only concern I have. It may not be any issue at all, but I would think we need to be sure about that before we tell them they can go ahead and connect to that trail. So I think our main concern, our thoughts were just the connectivity to the sidewalk that's going to be along Jefferson Pike. That obviously would provide the amenity, the connection to the amenity that the people who would live here can connect to and utilize the park very directly without having to go anywhere. There is of course, the trail actually crosses Sharp Springs Road at the very end of the road as well, so they could connect there too. But anyway, so I think that's the only thing I think we need to work through, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt Taylor from SEC, 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard, representing Landmark Homes. I think we're happy, if it's okay with Kevin, I think it achieves the same goal. If we just build the sidewalk from our entrance back south, back toward Jefferson Pike, and I think it would link in with that. Didn't seem to be a destination to the north since you got the water treatment plant up there, but I think maybe that's where the money is the best spent at, if we just go from our entrance back south. We've already got entrances or sidewalks along all of our streets on both sides internally. So if the commission is satisfied with that, I think that would be the best way to spend that money.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we were aiming for. That's what our recommendation was. That eventually, the property, of course, I don't know what's going to happen with the road being relocated and there's gonna be some excess property in there, that part will have to get worked through, but if something ever happens to the property to the south, it could be built in, the connection, or, the town or someone, we could come along and do that at some point, I guess, too. But, so that's really what our thoughts were, to make
So
that connection.
you're agreeable,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fine.
okay?
There's a reason you can't do them both.
I think we would leave the sidewalk to the west as well. I think we want to promote I think that's going to be a big selling point, is the access and ease of access back to Sharp Springs. Sounds like that sidewalk along the road back toward Jefferson's important to staff and the town, and so we're happy to do that. So we want to promote our residents. We think that'll be important to them to get access
both of
back
them.
to the park. Yes, sir.
I think that would be beneficial if we could do them both.
Yeah, I agree. I think that connection is good. The only thing, I just don't want to
Just that
get the core
permitting.
upset. Yeah.
Subject to core approval, I guess.
Yeah.
Matt, just,
Yes, sir.
or Kevin, the property beside this, between there and the water plant, that square, is that city owned or is that privately owned?
That's part of this town's property.
The property, all the property directly north of this, the town owns, yeah.
Okay. So if the sidewalk's put in on this property up to their property lines, and once Jefferson Pike's completed, and that sidewalk goes in out on Jefferson Pike, and the homeowner on the corner stays, who would, or would there ever be a sidewalk added at that point? Would the city come in and do it themselves to tie it into this
I mean,
subdivision?
that's something that the council could decide to do and put in the budget, certainly, or in the future, or, my thoughts were I think at some point that property,
And the
that
corner
road
lot
is,
would sell?
when you have a 5-lane road in front of it, at some point it might sell to something else. And
Right.
so I think that's what I would anticipate that would be built at that time.
Connect it at that point?
Right.
Other questions? Thank you, Matt. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the staff comments and both sidewalks.
Okay. I have a motion to approve with staff comments and including both sidewalks. Do I have a second?
Second.
I've got a lot of seconds.
Pick one.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave that up to Mitchell. He's got it. All right. I have a motion and a second to approve the staff comments and to include the requirement for the 2 sidewalks. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item under rezoning request is from Puya Harban. Hope I got that right. This is at 1131 Amelville Road, rezoning C2 to C5.
Yeah, this is a rezoning request. It's about 8.83 acres, currently zoned C2. The requested zoning is C5. Surrounding zoning is C2 in town and RM in Rutherford County. Land use plan would support light industrial and commercial in this area. The major thoroughfare plan does designate Amelville Road as a minor arterial street, and adequate right-of-way does exist at this location for that. Just as an informational comment, the majority of this property does currently lie within the floodway. FEMA has proposed revisions to the flood maps, which will take a portion of this property from the floodway and to the 100-year floodplain, but those revised maps are not currently effective. So, and of course, that affects, regardless of what the zoning is, that affects any development of this property. But just for everyone's, knowledge, that is the situation of this property as it currently sits. CUD does have a 12-inch, this is in their district, does have a 12-inch water main to serve that area, but they would have to look at adequate fire flow once they know exactly what's going to be built there. So again, that's really just for everyone's information. The applicant is here if you have any questions. This is, everything around this property that's in town is C2. There is some industrial nearby as well, and then it's all residential in the county. So it's not consistent from that standpoint. So staff would have some concerns about this zoning. Again, the applicant is here, and I don't know exact specific use that they're looking at for or anything like that, but of course C5 is a more open zoning than what C2 is as far as the uses that are allowed.
Let's talk about that for the commission's purpose and for folks that are viewing this. So what is allowable in C5 that's not allowable in C2?
Any type of automobile or any type of vehicular sales, as well as the repair of those vehicles, as well as we allow for light manufacturing if it's in a completely enclosed building and that sort of thing, as well in that C2. So some very limited manufacturing like tool and die, those kind of things, not anything heavy. As long as in a completely enclosed building is also allowed in the C5 by right.
And as I recall, currently what we're seeing being built out there is retail, restaurant. I know that on the track across there, we have a church that's going in with, I think the front parcels there are continuing to be built out retail restaurant right now, right?
That's right. We had the gas station that was recently approved, the church that was recently approved.
The convenience store,
The convenience store, yes.
which is.
It's at the corner of 1 Mile Lane.
Yeah.
And Allenville.
Just down a bit.
Yeah, just down a bit.
Okay. Yeah, being that we're looking at a move to C5, I think it's really important to kind of get an idea. Is there a representative here? If you can come up and give us your name,
It's Puyan Harbourban,
okay?
Okay,
And your address, please?
1608 Round Hill Drive, Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. Could you tell us what the intent is, what you're proposing to be built here?
Okay, well, the main reason is that currently, because it's on the floodway, we cannot build anything on the property. We are intending to make it a vehicle dealership, and there is currently already a building on the property that we could turn into the office. And since we can't build anything, we could just pave the property to park vehicles on and sell them. But because of the floodway, we cannot build anything on the property.
Okay. So you're proposing a vehicle dealership?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
So if we approve the zoning, then Kevin, would he have to go through any additional approvals to do a car dealership there?
Well, yeah, actually, it's a BZA, technically still a BZA review, but he would have to meet some certain requirements as far as screening of the landscaping and those kind of things. The vehicles have to be set back a certain distance from the road. We have some issues or some requirements in our municipal code as far as how they have to be situated on the property and not crowded, and you have to be able to get in and out and drive through the site and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there would be that additional layer. If the council were to rezone it, there would be that. But at that point, there's some requirements he has to meet, and we review all those with the BZA. If he can meet those requirements, it's more routine, I guess.
Kevin, because this is floodway and not just floodplain property, correct?
Currently, yes.
Does FEMA permit them to sort of rob dirt to elevate this any, or not? Do they have to replace and rot like they would a floodplain?
Yeah, they basically can't, like, as he said, that they can't build anything, any structure
They
at all.
can't elevate this by cut and replace.
Right, yeah. Now, the proposed revisions to the flood map do take part of this property that's currently floodway
To
and
the
put it in the
floodplain.
floodplain,
Right.
which would allow for some of that.
Right.
But those are not effective yet, and I still, today, don't know when they will be. So, at the current time, he's completely correct. It's all floodway and it can't do anything other than, park vehicles on it or farm it or whatever. So,
Do we know what FEMA may do there from a floodplain perspective yet?
We have the draft, yes.
And is there any possibility he could elevate the floodplain portion,
There would be a possibility, yes. And we'd have to,
and then he could build something there?
in the future, certainly he could. Again, regardless of what is zoned in the future, if the map that's proposed becomes effective, in that area where is the floodplain, he could do a cut and fill, or he could flood-proof the building and build it up and those kind of things, have the floodproofing like we saw with the convenience center.
Right.
So I mean, that would be, but that, he can't do any of that till that map becomes
Right,
effective.
I understand. Well, so I guess where I'm going with this, I heard you mention earlier that, it's not a consistent zone with what's around it. And I'm wondering if he were to wait for his new maps to come in, if he could do something C2 there and get some use out of it that would match the
Sure.
surrounding zoning. I personally don't see it as a good fit currently because of that. I would like to see a C2 zone come there. That's if you will, it's sort of a new gateway right into the west side of our community there.
On the Smyrna zoning ordinance, one of the contentions for Z5 was that it needs to be close to a major traffic artery. This property is currently around 300 feet from I-24, and pretty much most of the properties down the road towards I-24 are commercial, and there are several industrial warehouses right across the street as well.
Right, it was zoned for that there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying it's, I see as I believe it would be a good fit for a C5, specifically because currently we cannot, on C2, we cannot do anything on
How long have
it.
you owned the property there?
Several months now.
Oh, so you just bought it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, you can.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
We had something similar to this at the Old First Tennessee Bank at Nissan and Enon Springs, did we not? And we basically had a situation again in which we were C2 and the request came in as C5. And we looked at the surrounding zoning. It wasn't consistent with the surrounding zoning, and as I recall, we denied that request, right?
That's correct.
Other thoughts, discussion, questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion based on the surrounding zoning and the inconsistency to deny the request to go to C5 from C2.
Okay. I have a motion to deny this request. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deny the request. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of denying this request to rezone from C2 to C5 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion is denied. Our next item is Clyde Roundtree on behalf of Ed Freeman, 5916 New Nashville Highway, a PUD amendment.
Yeah, this is an existing PUD, a planned unit development that's been in place for several years now. It's about 9.47 acres at 5916 New Nashville Highway. It is kind of a mix of things around it, C2 in town and RM in Rutherford County. Future land use plan would support commercial development in this area. The existing approved PUD allows for conventional self-storage RV and boat storage, and for an existing residence to remain. The proposed amendment would basically keep all that in place, but add an additional building, which would be a two-story, 9,500 square feet, climate-controlled facility. The major thoroughfare plan does designate New Nashville Highway as a principal arterial, and adequate right-of-way does exist there for that. Number 5, comment, we had, this is not served by sewer. There is an existing septic system for the office that's on the site. We did just ask them to verify with TDEC groundwater protection that the current septic tank is adequate for what is being proposed. And that's, we can add to that comment just prior to issuance of a building permit. That way we don't have to do it now. And we're not asking for it now. But before we could do a building permit, we'll need to have that. Number 6, we'd ask them to provide the proposed building setbacks. They've done that. They're essentially consistent with the C2 setbacks, which is what's all around this. And that's what the original PUD is. We just wanted to make sure they were keeping them the same, and they are. We'd ask them to revise the exterior elevations to meet the requirements of design review. They do meet the requirements with regards to the materials that are proposed, but they do not meet the new requirements as far as the percentages that we require now. And then we'd also ask them to verify, and this could be a before building permit, we did ask them to verify with CUD that existing water infrastructure is adequate to serve that addition. A minimum of 1,500 gallons per minute is required. So again, this is it's an existing facility. We did receive a pattern book, which is there. You have that on your desk. It does show kind of the proposed layout as well as the elevations, or the proposed architectural elevations are at the back of the site, back of the packet.
Questions for staff?
This stretches right out to our city limit, does it not, Kevin?
It is. There are the parcels that are between this and New Nashville Highway that are 6 or 8 there. They're all zone C2, and but yes, it is right on the line with Murfreesboro.
So the existing house will come down?
There is an existing office, I think. that's
There's an
there.
office and a house.
Yeah, I believe it's the office, I think is what they were gonna bring down, I believe. They might could answer that a little bit better, but. This is one that the development actually started in the county, because the front part of the parcel was in the city and the rest of it wasn't, and then it all came in. But it was kind of already begun in the county before it was annexed. So it's kind of, we basically, they had a approved zoning through the county that we more or less kind of adopted when they came through. That's why it came in as a PUD, not any type of industrial or anything like that, because they had the residential piece to it as well. But I do know this new building is going to be the office for the whole development. So that existing office may be coming down. That's why I said that.
It just looks like where they're showing it, it's kind of sitting on top of where the old house and the current office is located. There's gates there now too, Kevin, back at that office, the current office. Will they move those out front? Do you know? For entrance? They
That
typically-
is certainly a possibility. I don't know exactly the answer to that. There is going to be some guest parking. It's going to be built, new guest parking is going to be built closer to New Nashville Highway. So they certainly may be proposing to move the gate as well.
Okay, but then can we get fire trucks in there off the road to get into that place as well?
I mean, you have the double width, or the 2 entrances now. They'll have to meet those minimum fire code requirements.
Where the fire truck can get off the road before they hit the gate
Yes, they'll have to do
Okay.
that, as well as the width of the
with,
drive as well.
yeah, with there not being any direct access straight, if you're going from town up there, you've got to go past it, make a turn to come back into it. Or
Right.
would you, you're not gonna go up the wrong side of the road to get a fire truck in there, are you?
No, I'm sure they would probably,
You understand what I'm saying? You've got to go past the facility to turn, to come back down to it. To get back in there, so I'm just, with that facility being as close as it is to the road, I just want to make sure that the gate's pushed back far enough that you can get in there to it.
Exactly 20 feet. 20 foot, yes, but we don't know where they're talking about putting the gates on.
Right.
the building's proposed at roughly, well, there's a 35-foot front setback minimum, so the building will be over 35 feet from the road, from the property line, not necessarily the road. So you're gonna have at least 35 feet, probably more than that, before you would hit
At the gate?
at the gate. But we would, we would, the gate can be set, it'll be further back than that, because we got parking in that area. So it'll be 45, 50 feet at minimum, yeah, off the road,
that's-
off the property line.
That's plenty for fire truck. I don't know what the length of the fire truck is, this size of the school bus, right?
49 feet is our longest engine, and, I mean, it would be our request that we would get at least 50 feet before a gate began.
Okay.
If that were to occur, sir.
Okay. Because I know with storage, they store vehicles, and you don't know what's in some of those storage facilities, so.
Yes, sir.
Sure, yeah.
There'd be a site plan to review on this too,
Yeah.
so.
Sure, yeah, we would see it again if it was approved, but yeah, all those codes would have to be met, sure.
It's probably beneficial for the applicant to hear that though, so they, if they're here, I don't know if they are or not, so they can begin to make those adjustments accordingly if this were to move forward.
Other questions for staff?
Any buffers needed? Fencing or buffers of any kind needed?
We do border.
they'll fence most
There's some
likely.
existing area that's already,
I know it's a rezone right now, but
Yeah.
since the applicant's, I think, here.
it's really, this amendment really is just affecting that area closest to the road. There is some residential abutting properties on the north and east. There's own residential in the county.
Yeah, that Swiss Air and Alpine Drive is all residential there, that's why I was asking.
Right. And then there's,
There is a current fence up there now, too. for the existing
Is there?
Property, yes.
Okay.
And I think there's a current fence line with trees in it beside where they're proposing the building and the next parcel heading towards Murfreesboro. I think all those were residential at one time, have homes on them.
yeah, some of them are used still as residential and then some
Yep.
are not. So
Are they all Zone C2 currently?
they're all Zone C2. Some of them are vacant. We've had a couple buildings approved out there. There was a
Two.
cabinet
Two
shop
for
and
sure.
a countertop place.
Carpet place.
Yeah, the other carpet
Yeah.
place, yeah.
So we would look for the buffers to be consistent with C2 that abuts to C2, correct?
That abuts the residential piece.
Well, yeah.
If it's not already there.
And I guess my point is, if it's a C2 that abuts to a C2,
We really don't require a buffer in there,
Exactly.
yeah.
Kevin, what's staff's recommendation on this?
I mean, we don't have, from a zoning standpoint, we don't have anything, or we would recommend approval with the idea that the elevations would meet the requirements of design review. And I'm fine with that being a condition of the approval. That
Okay.
they would, when it comes back to, goes to council, or even when it comes back for site plan, if council approves it, that we look at it again then to meet. Certainly the the picture on the cover certainly meets it.
Yeah.
So, that's in another community just west of us.
That's kind of what we want, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Can we just revert to the picture on the cover is what we're looking at?
Or something similar to that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, so they've built it other places, so I think they can do it here as well.
Okay.
In the second picture.
Yeah. 17 Brentwood Road.
Which one?
Other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval with staff comments.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Rezoning request is approved. Our next item is Clyde Roundtree on behalf of Scott Butler, Terrytown Drive, rezoning R1 to PRD.
Yeah, this is a rezoning request for about 2.2 acres. It's a part of an existing subdivision called Valley Green. This is kind of it's a not developed lot, but it is a vacant lot, but it is a part of that overall development. Surrounding zoning is all R1. The future land use plan would support medium density residential here in this area. This proposed PRD is for 5 single-family lots. Major thoroughfare plan does designate Terrytown Drive as a local street, and adequate right-of-way does exist. Fire flow at this location, this was really just an informational comment, is 1,200 GPM at 20 PSI, so it does meet the fire code requirements for that. We had a few comments. Number 6, they had some inconsistencies as far as the common space ownership between a couple of their pages, and so we'd asked them to make those pages consistent, and they have, and that it would be an HOA managed by a third party. Number 7, we'd asked them to show the nearest fire hydrant location along with the distance from the site. They have shown that now. It's on page, if I could find it real quick. It's about 200 feet to the first house that's proposed. So they may be okay, but we did add the second sentence of that we would want to keep, that another hydrant may be required to meet the distance requirements, so that there's a house or a hydrant within 500 feet of all the houses. And number 8, they had some incorrect information on page 9 of that regarding the square footage of the existing square footage of the land, and then the proposed minimum lot size. And they have addressed that, so those have been addressed. This is a piece of property you all have seen once before a few months ago. At that time, the request was for 10 townhouses, and so that was turned down. That request was, and so this is kind of the second request we've seen on this property for instead of 10 townhomes, 5 houses. They are proposing setbacks that are consistent with what we look at on single-family PRDs with when they have front entry garages with the 35-foot fronts. They do have 7.5 feet sides, so 15 feet between the homes, but and then 35 feet front. So I believe that's what I got.
Well, to state the obvious, all surrounding zoning here is R1.
That's correct.
Okay. And with R1, what are we looking at as far as typical or standard side and front setbacks?
The setbacks in R1 are 35 feet front. They are 15 feet on the sides instead of 7.5. And they're 25 on the rear, they're showing 20.
We're
And then-
looking at, what, 2.2 acres here? Did I read
Yes.
that?
Yes.
So in an R1 zone, if you were to subdivide it, would it equate to roughly 5 homes?
Maybe a little more. 15,000 square feet is the minimum lot size in R1, so 5 lots would be 75,000 square feet. You know, they're 2.2 acres, so you're at probably 100,000 square feet of land roughly, or a little less. I think they had 95,000, so you probably, if you had enough road frontage, you could probably build 6 houses. They only have enough road frontage for 3 because you have to have a 100-foot lot width. They have about 340 or so, I think.
So if this were brought in as an R1, in other words, if we took this parcel and I guess subdivided it into 3 lots, or I guess 3 lots that would meet the definition
Yes,
and requirements of R1, that's what you could do here.
yes. By right now, yes, that's what you could do.
I guess there's a fairly significant portion of this that can't be built on due to a sinkhole, is that correct?
That's correct. The rear, probably half of the property, basically is what they're leaving alone. It just has in the common space. There is some drainage through that area, yes. I mean, there's a sinkhole, there's some drainage that comes through that. It shows up on one of the pages they submitted,
It's hard
page
to see it
4.
right now because it's so grown up.
It's all
Yeah.
pretty heavily wooded and grown up. It's page 4 shows it, kind of what they're looking at. The existing drainage kind of goes west to east already. They're showing relocating a ditch, as part of this. But,
It's all that on city water sewer.
yes,
Originally, were they on septic or have they always been on?
that neighborhood was on septic
Septic.
originally, but the city ran sewer out
So it's been
there
converted.
25 years ago, something like that.
Kevin, what is the response of the community, the neighborhood?
Previous time, we had quite a bit of
Right.
response. The letters we sent out, I think, folks, we sent them last week, but I think, I talked to one lady just before the meeting, she'd received it today, so I mean, I think maybe not everyone knows about it quite yet. The one person that I've talked to had some concerns about drainage, and then maintenance of the common space long-term by an HOA, you know, or an individual property owners, because it's a large area. You're talking, like I said, it's probably acre or more of this 2.2 acres is going to be in that open space. When you're talking about 5 houses in an HOA, so that's not a large HOA or anything. So those are really kind of her concerns, I think. Which again, the drainage issue, that's something we would look at a lot more detail at if this is rezoned or not when it's subdivided. You know, we would look at that a lot more detail at that time typically, when we see those engineering plans at that time. But
Other questions or comments? Someone here representing the development that we could have come up? All right, if we could have your name and address, please.
Hello, Clyde Roundtree with Huddleston Steel Engineering, 2115 Northwest Broad Street, and I'm here representing the Butler Brothers as well. I'm here for any questions you may have. As was mentioned, that we had townhomes here before. Obviously, that met some resistance, and it wasn't consistent with the fabric of the neighborhood. We feel like what we're offering now with the single-family homes, they'll be comparable in size and character, probably a little larger than the existing homes in the neighborhood. By having 5, it allows us to build a more superior type of home, and they'll all have adequate parking out front, so there won't be any street parking. They'll all have concrete driveways. There's a lot of houses in the neighborhood still that have kind of gravel driveways. So it's a little bit higher density than what is existing around it, but we feel like it's fitting with the character of the quality of the homes. And as far as the back area, we're working through that as far as the maintenance strategy for that. as was mentioned, a lot of it is, it's really all drainage back in there. It's fairly rough, and so there won't be a lot of hands-on maintenance. There is some drainage that goes through there, that will be addressed, as Kevin mentioned, in the site plan. The only thing that I think that we need to know too is it is a sinkhole now, but it's actually a dump. I mean, people are just going back there and doing what they want to do back there. So I think to bring some ownership in that area and bring some homes there will just bring some kind of vicarious ownership to that area, so it won't be kind of abused. But right now, it's kind of a place where people get into, and not a good thing.
Was there any consideration into subdividing this into 3 lots that were more consistent with the R1 that surrounds it? Give us your name and address.
Scott Butler in Smyrna. It's just more feasible as far as to, with the drainage that we have to put in. I think there has to be some pipes put in and then redirect it to the sinkholes, clean the sinkholes out, clean up the area, the fill has to be moved, has to be brought in to build building pads. And so with that expense, that's the reason for 5 is because of the expense. As far as the PRD, with the open space, it's right now, it's woods and grown up and it's, I guess, privacy, but, it could be, with the PUD, it could be we'd probably turn it over to the Valley Green Association that's already in existence just down the street and add it with that. But, as far as being mowed, it could be, mowed or left as a buffer zone, some of it, but it's just whatever is preferred as far as if the city wants it maintained, we could fix it where it could be mowed and cleaned up instead of just vegetation. So that's not a problem. But yeah, it's the 5 lots is definitely, that's why we try to do 10, but we're just trying to make it feasible for the construction that has to be done to make it buildable and to reroute all the drainage to the sinkholes, most of it. That the engineers would have to design that to make it work properly for the city where there's no issues down the road.
So from a feasibility standpoint, what you're saying is to make it work, or is it what you're saying to make it work monetarily, that's what you have to do?
Yes, for the expense of it. If the lots were already in existence and there was no requirement as far as drainage issues or building pads, then yeah, you could do that. But as far as you need the lots to where the money's there to help, fix it up and move, the drainage has to be moved back and then rerouted to the sinkholes.
Could that be achieved with 3, or is it could be achieved, but it's going to be a lot more costly to do so?
No, it would be, of course, it'd be better with 5 with the expense of it. But one of the biggest expenses is I'm sure there's going to have to be some pipe added. But where the lots are now, we are currently mowing the front about where the houses are now, but the rear of the houses, the lot drops off to the drainage. So to have part of the rear of the building and the drainage to be moved back to where there's a rear yard, that has to be filled in. So you're talking about, trucking material over there to build pads to scoot them back. The front 3/4 of it, but plus too, I'm sure, we have to scoot the houses back to make room for make room for cars, because now there's, they don't want anybody parking on the street, so we have to scoot the houses back, which in return we have to build the pads back and then give them a rear yard. So all that has to be trucked in there to do that. So, if you're going to do that whole space, that 340 feet there, and you have to address all that expense for that 340 feet for the 3 houses, it's definitely more feasible to include 5 houses to make that feasible to fix the lots.
Okay.
What's that whole total frontage right there, Kevin?
The road frontage is like 340 or so feet. So I said that's, R1 has a 100-foot lot width minimum, so that gets you the 3 houses we were talking about.
Well, he's requesting a PRD anyway, but.
Yeah, he's proposing basically
Yeah,
5 60-foot lots.
I understand why the chairman was asking some of the questions, and Scott, I'll ask you this.
Yes, sir.
You know, you're looking at, this is an established subdivision that we're trying to kind of fit a square thing into a round hole here, or whatever you want to call it. And when I look at that, I just see a lot of density in the middle of a subdivision that's not so dense. So I'm trying to find maybe a happy median here, and I know that with R1, 3 is the only way you can really make that work. With 4, how wide could you make those lots?
I mean, you could go to 75
Okay.
or 80,
And
really
keep, and
75.
keep, you say R1 was 10 foot to the side?
R1's 15.
15 feet to the side?
Yeah, you
Could
might
you do
go to a
4
10
and
you
have
might could go
15
to-
feet sides?
That gets you 60 more feet to work with, so you'd have to,
And Scott, you may not even want to do 4, I'm just trying to bounce.
I understand.
yeah, I mean, you might could get to 15-foot sides.
And so that being an R1 with 15-foot sides at minimum all through there, I'm just wondering if four lots with 15-foot sides would look a little better and not be as dense as squeezing 5 in there. It sounds to me like that might be a concern for a few. So Scott, would 4 make it feasible for you to do that? I know you want to do 5, but I get it. But would 4 work for the integrity of the existing subdivision? We've talked about some zoning up here already tonight, trying to be a little consistent with what surrounds it. And I'm just trying to make sure we try to do that here too.
Mark, just to jump in too, I'm sorry, I'm gonna jump
No,
right in
you're
front of you. To jump in, you're reading my mind, because that's exactly what I was thinking as well. Because certainly, you know, I appreciate the response as far as what it's gonna take to make it a buildable area, right? Makes sense. But it is definitely different than current density. But I was also thinking the same thing of, could we split the difference and go 4?
And get the width on the side of the lot.
And then you've got more width on the sides, and you've got a better fit at least that is more of a continuous scenario with the area.
I get that it's a tough piece of property. I do. It's, with sinkhole back there and the way it falls off, it's a tough build. But I think, for where it is and what's around it, I think the neighbors would probably appreciate more so if it kind of fit the same lot sizes as what you're dealing with in the neighborhood there. Could that be done, or do you know? You'd
I'd
put-
have to ask Dennis, see what he thinks.
Dennis says he's gonna ask Scott.
He said we could try it, I guess.
Musical chairs.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kevin, on the setbacks, if you go 15, would that affect the front or rear setbacks at all? Or would they
With
stay
a PRD,
35?
it wouldn't.
Would they stay 35 and
I
20?
mean, 35 is the minimum in R1 anyway.
Right.
And a lot of those were built, this subdivision was developed in the county, so there are some houses that are set back quite a bit more even than what the county required when this was built originally, so. But 35 is what we would require in R1 on the front. So if you go 15-foot side, we have a 20-foot rear shown,
So the only thing would change would be the sides.
yeah.
Right, it spreads those houses out,
Okay.
right? It
And
gives it an
basically you
R1
need,
side
to
setback.
do 4 lots, you need like, I think 52 and a half feet or whatever. So if you eliminate a house, you would definitely have room to meet 4 with 15-foot side setback.
And the backyard being a 20-foot, still with what's behind it, becomes sort of a extended yard, so to speak, so.
Scott, do you know how much, if you do that 20-foot setback, how much fill you're gonna have to do back there? I don't know how quick it drops off. I couldn't see it today. I went by there, but I just couldn't see
It's
that.
pretty steep right there.
Yeah. You gonna have to fill in another 15 or 20 feet to get a yard in, or 30 feet, or do you know?
I haven't measured it or anything, so just whatever it needs to, I generally go by what sells the house. You know, most people want, you know, a minimum 20, 25,
Okay.
maybe 30, just somewhere, I would say probably 25 in the middle somewhere, just to give somebody, because they like, you know, swing sets and trampolines. And so we would, for selling purposes, we would definitely, they would need at least 20, 25 feet would be a good yard size.
Okay. So where the houses are currently sitting with your 20-foot setback, you're still gonna have to bring fill in?
Oh, yes,
To bring-
sir,
okay.
yeah.
No matter
Yeah,
what.
the rear of the
Yeah.
lot, and the rear of the house, I'm sorry. The
Right.
rear of the house is
Is the
right
edge
at
of
the
it?
edge of that drainage,
Okay.
and that's where the fill would have to start, and maybe some in the house. I just
Yeah.
have to measure it or get with Enid to make sure of that. But whatever is required to have a rear yard, it would be a nice, and if we go bigger, because we have plenty of fill, so we can
Sure.
go 5 feet bigger is not a big deal, even if we made them 25 or 30, you know, because they have, like you said, they have plenty of room back there in the open space.
Yes.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
depends on the drainage, and they have to calculate and design all of that to make
Okay.
it all work, so. The more the better for a rear yard, I agree with that.
It won't affect the sides, but just the rear on everything. So, okay.
Scott, and, you know, we understand that this is a very difficult lot. I mean, you're stuck with half of it unusable because of the sinkhole. We also recognize that what we're trying to ask you to fit in around it came in with different zoning and septic systems. So, you know, it's a completely different time, right,
Right.
of how it would be developed in versus now. So we recognize, as Mark said, we're trying to ask you to put a square peg in a round hole, but, you know, we want to be, you know, conscientious of the property owners that live out there now as well.
If I could just add, my only question would be, one of the challenges we're facing is just the size of the homes in the neighborhood. So as you go to. if
We
you
just
go-
made them bigger for you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's where what my concern is visually, that you don't, if Scott has to build a larger house in order to make it work financially, you know, I don't want that to look like you know, lot sizes are one thing, you can perceive that. There may be some ways we can even stagger the houses, even if it requires more fill in the back, so it doesn't look so dense. But I have a feeling if he goes to 4 lots and all of a sudden these houses become very different from a pattern, you know, just from an overall aesthetic, that's another concern I would have, because I think he'd be pressured to put a bigger house on the lot to make it work. And all of a sudden you have, you know, these houses are, I think just our standards now, the fact that, you know, we're gonna be masonry for the most part, we're gonna have gravel, I mean, these houses will feel newer and fresher than the existing houses. So I know where you're heading, but I wanna make sure we're not heading in a direction that puts us to where these things look like an anomaly just because they're so different visually. Even though the lots could be narrow with 5, I think the house's character would be very consistent with what's going on in the neighborhood. So that's just, I'm not sure if that's exactly right, Scott, but I think as a bigger house, bigger lot, all of a sudden they've looked different than the fabric of the neighborhood as well.
Well, they're gonna look different from the fabric anyway, because
No
you've
matter
got
what you
homes
do,
that were built
yeah.
in the 70s and 80s.
Right,
there.
yeah.
So there's no way around that. I mean, when we were looking at townhomes, they were gonna look different.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But is everyone sure that 4 lots, that would not require rezoning? It will work under R1? Is that with the measurements?
No, because you don't meet the rear setbacks of.
Okay, so it would
It's
still
really
be
more
It'd still be a
zoned with-
Still be a
PRD.
PRD.
But
Yeah.
just, you guys are asking for 4.
Just a
so far.
minimum
Oh,
to
Yeah,
4.
it would
You would
be-
get 3 under R1.
Yes,
So we're
yes.
compromising
Okay.
with the 4.
I'm
You'd still
We're
be
trying to
PRD.
work with you and.
I understand. I wasn't real clear on as far
Yeah,
as
it-
zoning, if it was still needed or
Yeah.
not.
And the
main
big thing for me
issue-
was the 15-foot sides.
Yes.
That's consistent with what's out there now.
Yeah, the R1 has a 100-foot minimum lot width, so we would be going to 75. That's the main difference, I guess, from R1 to this PRD.
Yeah.
Really.
He's got 1,400 minimum in his pattern book here. And you know, I know the market is probably as good as anybody, and it's not going to hurt you to do 18, I promise you, you know, so. If you had to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess it sounds like we need to probably do 4 then.
Well, that's the great spirit you've got there, Scott.
Any other questions, comments?
Still have a comment?
Yep. Can you give us your name and address, please?
Nancy Jones, I live at 549 Carter Lane.
Okay.
I back directly up to it. Regardless of the number of homes, I think my concerns are gonna stay the same. They're gonna be drainage and maintenance.
Okay.
If he's putting in drainage pipes and all that to make it work, then a lot of that clearing's gonna, a lot of that wooded area is gonna go away. It's gonna have to be cleaned out and less dense. There is a small area that my fence backs up to that is maintained at this point. It's just grass. That, if that wooded area isn't cleared out, it would be hard to get to continue to maintain it.
Kevin, can you speak to that for her as far as, because I heard him say Valley Green Association might take this over, and I don't know that they have an HOA, do they?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And what do they maintain with the HOA?
Valley Green, just
Yeah, come up here so everybody can hear.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you sit down.
Yeah. Come back up.
We want to address it for you.
Valley Green is just, you know, it's like the next street over there, and we could put it in with that. We're in the middle of turning it over to a management company, PMI in Murfreesboro. So they're gonna start managing. It's there, but it hasn't been turned over. We've been doing the maintenance ourselves as far as the mowing.
So third party's going to take it over?
Yes, sir, yeah. We're almost finished with Valley Green. We're on the last section.
Right.
So that was our intentions, is to, we're in the middle of doing that now and giving them all the information with the plats and the lots and where the common area is, and we could include that with that for them to do that, because they're going, I mean, with a PUD, they'll charge fees to the houses.
And would that be
maintain.
maintaining that area in the back then?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we would have to,
It needs to be addressed somehow, doesn't it?
right, we'd have to address it, because it'd be a PUD then, and
Right.
it would be, you have to have the common space, so it's either, you know, if we're clearing it out, we'd have to fix it where it's mowable, where it could be mowed and maintained, yeah. Because I'm sure
You're
that.
sensitive to your neighbor.
Right, and with the drainage, and that's where you guys would make sure on any plan approvals that the drainage would have to, you know, make sure that it's right, and with engineers and stuff,
Yeah,
with
right.
Tom, the city engineer and everybody.
So for you, I hope that sort of answered your questions. He has to make drainage work based on staff engineering, so that will be addressed. If that makes- Yes.
What about maintenance? I'm not aware of the homeowners association. I've never been asked to join it.
Well, are you part of Valley Green?
Yes.
I think what Scott's talking about, there's the development just west of this. This is the one he's talking about, which was like an addition to Valley Green or whatever. And there is quite a bit of open space in that. That was a PRD.
Okay.
And so I think
Place this in with that?
that's what he's talking about. Is this 4 lots, 5, or whatever we end up on, would be included with that other piece. It's not, it's not, it'd be a kind of, it was not connected to it by geographically, I guess, but it is very close by, and so it could be a part of the same deal.
We could make that part of our approval if
Yeah,
we
I mean,
do
it
approve
is,
it.
it's already in his PUD, that there will be a common, owned by an HOA, managed by the third party. So I think having him connected makes a lot of sense, because 4 homeowners in an HOA is not a very large HOA, and it'd be pretty hard to fund a whole lot.
By itself, right.
So having that combined with that other HOA makes a whole lot of sense from that long-term maintenance.
And to the benefit of you, a third party is probably the best way to go. They don't own the property, therefore they don't skip it or let it go. A third party would manage it.
But that's still enforceable by the city code?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The HOA oversees it. If they
Yeah.
did something that violated our ordinances or our codes, then yes, the city would step in.
Yeah, if it doesn't get maintained, it doesn't get mowed, it's the same as if a homeowner doesn't mow their lawn or whatever. It's the same type of thing.
We're just
does that help?
finding with third-party HOAs that they're more responsive as far as keeping up in the common areas, because all the homes that are associated with it are paying monies into it, and then the company's managing it, and then they're taking care of the maintenance, which includes mowing. And I'm not sure if we totally addressed your concern with drainage, but basically it's this: whatever whatever flows off the land now, you can't build something to cause more water to flow off of it. And what we find more often than not, that it's improved to a point where what currently flows off of it now, there's less disbursement of that water onto other properties. So we have a really high standard as far as that goes. Does that help? Okay. Okay, a lot of good discussion here. Any other questions or thoughts or comments? Real
So I
quick.
guess we're gonna be looking to Scott to withdraw this tonight and bring it back, or?
Could we?
Could do that, or you could recommend approval with conditions that it be four houses and with the 15-foot side setbacks and 75-foot lot widths and all that. I mean, that's either or.
Good, Counselor.
Fine. I think you can do that, but I don't know if you're wanting to look at it and see how it's laid out, those types of things. So you can do either any of those, defer it, or I just can bring it back.
So, if it were approved, subject to moving it from 5 to 4,
With 15-foot minimum.
with
size.
15-foot minimum side setbacks, all materials stay the same in all conditions as far as building exteriors, third-party administration of an HOA. If that were a motion, would this be something staff is good with? And
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Jeff, you're saying yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Tim,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve with 4 houses, 15-foot minimum side setbacks, all the staff comments, and a requirement of an HOA,
Third party.
third-party HOA.
Okay. You've heard the motion. I'm not sure I can repeat all that, but
Second.
I've got a second. So I've got a motion, a second. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tony. Further discussion?
Just for clarification, I know we talked about it, just to be sure, I know it's what he was meaning in his motion, just for the record, the lot width would be 75 feet minimum on that,
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
because that's how you can achieve that 15-foot side setbacks.
Good with that, Tim? Okay. Tony? Okay. We have a motion and a second with the additional clarification. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This rezoning request is approved. We are now ready for preliminary plats. The first one is Helmsley Place, Rocky Fork, Amable Road, owner, developer, Region Homes.
Yeah, this is a preliminary plat. This is a PRD that was recently approved, Hemsley Place. This is 57 lots, which would be a mix of the single-family and the townhouse lots, and 13.43 acres. We had several comments. Many of these were standard comments. We'll make a note of standard, comment number 4. 1, 2, and 3 are all standard and would remain. Comment 4 will remain as well. But just for everyone's information, Rocky Fork Amable Road is a minor arterial on the major thoroughfare plan, and they will be dedicating right-of-way with this plat for that street. Number 5, just a sign comment. Number 6, we would need to keep. They still need to submit the road names and the 911 approval of those names. Number 7 can be removed. They have now shown the edge of pavement, so we can remove that one. Number 8, we'd ask them, there's a fairly significant electrical easement that goes through the property. We'd ask them to show the dimensions on that. They did not do that. They did indicate that is probably going to be moving. But we would want to keep that comment to show those dimensions, and if it moves, they'll need to show it then, show at the new location, so we'd like to keep that. We did also I'm sorry, number 9, we did ask them to darken some property lines to be easier to see, and so they've done that, so we can remove that one. Number 10, we'd asked, there's a couple easement locations, where there's a sewer line shown and things like that they're not showing any easements or dimensions, so we need to keep comment number 10. We need to keep comment number 11, the name and address of the owner of the property and the developer, if that's a different person. None of that is not currently shown on the plat and needs to be shown. Number 12, we'd ask them to add the signature and stamp of the engineer who prepared the plat. That has been done, so we can remove that one. Number 13, that's more of a grading permit comment there, so we can take that one off. And then 14, we'd ask them to extend the proposed sewer to the northern property line and to Rocky Fork Allenville Road. They did show the extension of the sewer line to Rocky Fork Allenville Road. They are actually going to be, and they are extending it towards the northern property line. They actually cannot extend it all the way because of the contours of the property there. They'll be, at the way that the contours go, they'll actually, the sewer line would be not have adequate cover. So that has been reviewed by our utilities department, and they are okay with the location as it's currently shown in that area. So we can take that one off as well. And the rest of those comments are all from CUD, so we would probably just need to keep those for CUD comments on there. So, so basically 1 through 6, 8, 10, 11, and then CUD's comments. And we would recommend approval with those comments.
Kevin, this is consistent with what's been previously submitted?
Yes.
Questions for Kevin?
Chairman, show me the staining.
Mitchell? Hearing no questions, do I have a motion?
Move for approval with staff comments.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Further discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? This motion carries. We are now to final plats. Our first item is Andrews Subdivision Section 1, Green Tree Drive, owner, developer, Prosper Holding Group, Scott Butler.
Yeah, this is the final plat for Phase 1 of Andrews subdivision. 45 lots, 15.52 acres as part of the Andrews PRD. We just had 3 comments. This is the preliminary plat has been approved and the development is underway. We had 3 relatively standard comments. We would need to keep those 3 comments. It is consistent with the approved PRD and consistent with the approved preliminary plat, and we would recommend approval.
Okay, we've heard from Kevin. This is consistent with what's previously been approved, and staff is recommending approval. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Move to approve with staff
I
comments.
have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? This motion carries. Our next item is Point Subdivision Section 2, Jeannie Lane and Motlow College Boulevard, owner, developer, R&J Family Limited Partnership.
Yeah, this is a final plat. It's for 2 lots, 6.42 acres. It also includes the right-of-way dedication of Jackdaw Drive, as well as all of basically Jeannie Lane from where it's currently approved all the way over to Motlow College Boulevard. We had 3 kind of relatively standard comments. We would need to keep those. And it is consistent with the previously approved preliminary plat and we would recommend approval with those comments.
Questions for staff? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the staff comment.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Takes care of final plats. We're now on to site plans. Our first item under site plans, D.R. Horton Office Building, 7 Oaks Boulevard. Owner, developer, Parks Harney Investment, D.R. Horton.
This is a site plan for D.R. Horton, who is proposing a 21,679 square foot office building on 7 Oaks Boulevard. Property is bound by commercial developments to the east and west, by Lee Victory to the south, and the Villages subdivision to the north. In its current state, the property is 2 separate parcels. A final plat has been submitted to combine these 2 separate parcels for this development purpose. One access point is proposed off of 7 Oaks Boulevard for this development, and the aforementioned plat that is going to be combining these 2 parcels into one will need to be recorded prior to issuance of a building permit. Vehicular use area at the site, 43,169 square feet, which would require 4,316 square feet of landscaping. Applicant's proposing for 6,695 square feet, so they're meeting that requirement. Parking required 54 spaces, and they're proposing for 118. And that would also require 5 handicap spaces, which they are showing as well. The landscape plan submitted shows a variety of trees and shrubs lining 7 Oaks Boulevard. Additional trees and shrubs are shown within landscape islands around the base of the building as well. Architectural elevations show the building to be constructed primarily using brick on all 4 sides. Additional materials, in addition to the brick, would include tile, cementitious panel, and metal. We have a couple standard comments that all will remain, and staff comment 1, which is in regard to that final plat we mentioned earlier. That final plat will have to be recorded prior to building permits being issued. Comment 2 is a utilities comment. We're asking to shift the backflow preventer and the water meter to the right-of-way of 7 Oaks Boulevard. Comment 5 and 6 are both public works comments, so 2, 5, and 6 may or may not have been addressed yet. Haven't had a chance for them to look over these comments, but it will be addressed before permitting gets issued. Comment 3, we asked them to revise the building material percentages to meet design review. They were showing too much metal on the building, so they have revised those materials to meet design reviews, so comment 3 can be removed. Comment 4, we asked them to provide details for the fire truck that was used for the apparatus movement throughout the site. They did provide dimensions, but they're not for the ladder truck, so we asked that they use the dimensions for the town's ladder truck and resubmit the auto turn with the revised length of the new truck to show how it maneuvers throughout the site. So with that, comments 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 will all remain. With that, staff recommend approval.
Questions for Mitchell or any comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the staff comments.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Our next item is Rutherford County Convenience Center, corner of G Street and 11th Avenue, owner developer Rutherford County.
This is a new proposed convenience center located in Rutherford County's property off of Weekly Lane, and it is located at the corner of 11th Avenue and G Street, which is adjacent to the Rutherford County's clerk office as well as the emission testing site. An access point is proposed off of G Street with an egress point onto 11th Avenue, so we have entrance only off of G Street and exit only onto 11th Ave. Vehicular use area, 84,103 square feet for the entire site, and that would require 6,728 square feet of landscaping. They're proposing for 9,041 square feet. Parking required 3 spaces, and they're showing for those 3 spaces as well, with 1 handicap space that is required. The landscape plan shows street trees and a variety of shrubs lining G Street and 11th Avenue around the portion of the property which that is developed to be located. Architectural elevations submitted appear to have a wood siding on the office building. Staff does, after looking at this a little bit further, staff does find that these side elevations are acceptable in the industrial zone and it would not be visible from Weekly, so staff is comfortable with this material that they have. We're assuming that they have submitted to us. We did ask later in their report that they submit elevations that label the materials to be used, because they just kind of submitted elevations showing what it depicted to be wood, but would like them to clarify that for us. Had a couple standard comments, all to remain, and as well as staff comment 1, we asked them to submit those architectural elevations. So like I mentioned earlier, staff's okay with the proposed design, assuming that it is wood as we assumed it to be. So we'd just like them to submit architectural elevations that do clarify what those materials are to be used on all 4 sides of the building. Comment 2, we asked them, this is a Public Works comment, to provide a cement mixer cleanout location on the plans. And comment 3, we asked to provide detail on the number of vehicles that can be stacked on site, as well as how the overflow will be accommodated. The applicant did provide a detail of a vehicle stacking sheet that you all have to look at. It's got the southern entrance, which is the current one shown on this site plan, shows for approximately 24 vehicles, which would start from G Street onto the property, and then those vehicles would stack double wide going up to the entrance of the site. And then as well as there's another northern entrance. The applicant had mentioned that they met with Rutherford County on this development to kind of propose an alternate entrance north of the site, which would allow for more stacking. And that entrance would allow for about 34 vehicles without any queuing onto G Street. So that vehicle stacking plan I alluded to shows the overflow queue stacking onto G Street. So they have, in addition to the vehicles that are stacking off of G Street into the site, they are also showing vehicles stacking onto G Street. Staff would recommend that if they are anticipating vehicles stacking onto G Street, they widen G Street to accommodate for stacking and make a dedicated queue lane so we don't have traffic blocked in each way, as well as making a kind of a delineator in the middle of the road to prohibit anyone from making left-hand turns into the site. This is so you don't have, similar to other developments where you have traffic backing up onto the main road and you have issues with traffic flow in each direction. So that's just a way to try to alleviate that from happening. So with that, staff comment 1 can be taken care of. So with that, just 2 and 3 will remain, and with that, staff would recommend approval.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you
Did I hear you say the alternate entrance was acceptable?
Yes, they met with Rutherford County and they did deem it as an
Okay,
acceptable
thank you.
alternative if they desire to.
No, your comment was more than what I had. I was thinking we should get stacking off a Weekly anyway. I wanted to.
Yeah. And Nissan.
And Nissan, yeah, good point. Questions or comments?
Mitchell, did you say the entrance would be one way off G Street, exit on 11th?
Correct.
So the only traffic light that's out there to get people out of there on a regular Saturday is out by the gas station. That's the only traffic light that's in that area. Mm-hmm. People coming out of 11th Avenue, they're going to go right back out by the tag place. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of traffic.
Yep.
Is Weekly our street? Y'all foresee possibly having a light there? I know there's one up at the next, but people are gonna find the quickest way out. They spill out on 11th, they're gonna go right back out to Weekly. And especially on a Saturday, you've got a lot of traffic on Weekly anyway.
Would that be too close to the other light, though?
That's my other question.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of, I don't know what the distance is.
I think it's a
Charles, I don't
good
know, do you know the distance from Swan down to 11th? I don't know what that is.
No, I don't have a.
They're pretty close. I mean,
But traffic is doing that currently, coming out of the convenience center directly onto Weekly, and it's only one direction. This way, they do have an alternate
Right.
to go on out to G that direction, or go back out to Swan and catch the traffic signal there to make a.
yeah, if they're going west, they could go down G Street's the same readily, or G Street up to Swan and Swan across.
There's a lot of
Or
exits out of here
airport,
if they're able to find them, but typically people are gonna find the quickest route out. You could go out by the Guard, the next road down, closer towards the lake. There's several exits out of there, but I'm just thinking with traffic on Saturdays with the lake, that traffic area out there, because if you're out there on Weekly right now, it's tough to get through.
Thank goodness
just-
they're moving it, right?
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
I was about to
yeah,
say,
spilling
this is
people
better.
out. Of course, G Street, if they go out G, it comes out where there's no traffic light, and it's tough to get out there now versus, on a, when you've got extra traffic flowing in and out of there. So I don't know if that's a consideration or not. May have to look at it and see if it's a possibility of, I don't think you'd want one at G Street, because that's too close to the other light anyway.
Yeah, and that would be a T-Dot signal,
Yeah.
approved signal too.
Right,
so,
that's why I was asking, is Weekly our street where we could
Yeah.
possibly do something on that back, and maybe go down to where the Guard's at, the main entrance where the Guard, and they put their new parade field in. That's a lot further away, and that would get people out so they could get back towards, it'll put them closer. And just not put it there, because even getting tags now with the testing center fixing to go away in January, getting in and out of there sometimes just with first of the month and end of the month is kind of tough, right there at that intersection. I know that they're not up on Saturdays, but are they going to be 5 days a week, 6 days a week? Do we know their hours of operation? Are they going to move them or keep them the same?
I don't know that answer. I would assume they're keeping them the same, but
Okay.
that's.
Yeah, they're
what-
currently 6 days, as I recall.
Five.
Are they 5?
They go into 7 with the new center? Okay.
That's the understanding.
Okay, so if that's the case, then we're gonna have traffic 7 days a week there when they're open, because a lot of Saturdays, of course, the tag place is closed.
But what it
So that
also
may-
do is give them more times to go.
Right.
Yes.
So, the scheduling of it.
Right, so you're really
Offset
just,
some of it.
you're dispersing,
They can go out G Street, turn on Swan.
And hit the light.
And go
Yeah.
out if they have trouble. I mean,
Right.
and there's more opportunity to disperse the traffic at that location than there would be on Weekly Lane, and it's the same amount of traffic. I mean,
With-
basically the same folks.
right, with this by itself and nothing for traffic, this has got to be better, because
Oh,
there are so many
absolutely.
other
Yeah.
ways to disperse. Right.
Well, and I think it'll be easier to disperse traffic from the site itself, because if you think about it, during peak times, you can have cars stacked, waiting to get out.
Weekly.
On, not only on Weekly, but even in the parking lot to get out to Weekly.
Yeah.
So with this, I would anticipate that maybe the time there would be more efficient. And then I think we have several opportunities to disperse. But to your point, I think maybe this is something that Charles can look at as this develops out, and we can make some determination as the town as to whether or not it would warrant another signal, and if so, where.
That's the thing, if it becomes a problem, we do have options.
Yes.
Because that is city road.
We're not
It's not like we're
governed
gonna
by,
go.
we're not
Yeah.
governed by T-Dot
Yeah.
on that one. So,
Correct.
yeah, so-
Correct,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So just a separate observation. So currently, looking at, let's see, looking at where the proposal is, if you'll go immediately west, on the other side of G Street, there's a small, like a parking area. It's not very well done, and then there's the creek very close by. Is that correct?
Yes.
already we have people, sometimes I've noticed, because I actually ride my bike in that area, right? It's because there's no traffic. So, sometimes there are people who, apparently the dump is closed, and so they want to drop off their television or whatever other trash right over around that parking lot. I've seen it numerous times. So I guess one concern would be, we're going to make it now even easier to just go across the street and drop your stuff if the dump's closed, right? I don't think that's anything that we can do at this moment, but I want to bring it up to the representatives of the convenience center that that's something we need to pay attention to. We're going to make it more convenient to not use it properly.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Kevin, or Mitchell, did they say how big are they gonna have like an on-site office?
Yeah, there's gonna be 2 buildings, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, of course, all that's on city water, sewer.
Yeah. I would think that would be an improvement over
Oh, absolutely.
what's currently there as well.
I was thinking for the work, especially for the
Yeah.
workers there. I think right now they just have outside facilities, so it's gonna be a huge improvement. So,
Other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve staff comments.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
second.
I have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our last item under site plans is Wood Point, Section 1, 4311 Spriggan Way, owner developer American Homes for Rent.
The Wood Point subdivision is proposing for an amenity center, which would be on the corner of Sprague Way and Maple Creek Drive, which is located near the entrance to this subdivision. Currently, Maple Creek Drive is the only access point into this subdivision of Wood Point, and that access is come from Woodmont. The proposed amenity area has 2 buildings, a mail kiosk and a pool area. The total area for the amenity site would consist of just over 12,000 square feet. Vehicle use area for the site is 2,741 square feet, which would require 274 square feet of landscaping. We're still looking for the proposed amount of landscaping. The applicant did note that they are working on making a final edition of the landscape plan, so we currently aren't aware how much landscaping they do have at the site, but 274 square feet is the required amount they will have to meet. Total parking, they are showing for 13 spaces to accommodate, and 1 handicap space is required, but they are showing for 2. Like I said, the preliminary landscape plan shows shrubs around the pool area, and then the applicant stated they are working on finalizing a more definite landscape plan, which we have more details on later. Architectural elevations submitted for the 2 buildings show primary material of fiber cement board siding with a band of brick veneer around the base of the building. Standard comments all to remain, and then we had 2 staff comments. We had staff comment 1 to show the existing and proposed utilities, which would include the line sizes, meter locations, sewer cleanouts, and manholes. And then comment 2 regarding that landscape plan in detail, just asking to submit that final landscape plan to us. And with that, staff would recommend approval with the above listed comments.
Thank you, Mitchell. Do you have any questions for Mitchell on this? Do I have a motion?
To approve the staff comment.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion to approve with staff comments with a second. Any further discussions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That should conclude site plans. We are now on to the October bond review reports.
Yeah, we've got several this month, so I'll try to get through these relatively quickly. The first one is the Mason Tucker Commercial / Hummingbird Hill. This was a water sewer bond. Everything is done and being completed now. We've passed our maintenance period, so we can release that one. Reserve at the Meadows, Section 1, this is into their maintenance period. Everything is completed there, so we would recommend you release that one as well. Park at the Meadows, this is Section 3. Everything is complete there, but we do still need to have the 1-year maintenance period, so we would recommend a reduction to $10,000 and extend it 1 year as the maintenance bond. Patton Retreat Phase 1, still some items to complete in that one. They are about 95% complete in there. Did not hear back from the developer on that one. We have had that one now about 3 years, or about 3.5 years. So we would recommend extension on that one, but only 6 months on that. Patton Retreat Section 2, Phase 2, Section 1. Again, some items there to be completed. That one's about 2/3 built. Again, did not hear back from that developer, but would recommend a 6-month extension there. We've had that one a couple of years now. Cedar Hill, Section 2, Phase 3. Did talk with that developer. They're hoping to kind of be able to make the repairs and pave this fall. That's one we've actually had for 1 year. So we would recommend a 1-year extension on that one. And if they are able to do those repairs and they do finish paving, we could convert that to maintenance. If they do that relatively soon. The Oaks, this is a re-subdivision in the Oaks that the homeowner that lives out there had done. They're looking at potentially kind of going back to what they had previously approved, which would eliminate the need for this bond. Nothing's been done on this at all yet. They're homeowners and not professional developers, so they're trying to figure out what they're going to do there. So we would recommend an extension. That is one we have in escrow, just extend that one until they kind of figure that out. Park at the Meadows, Section 2. Again, most everything is done there. They have one item there. They need to clean out on a manhole, but we would recommend a reduction to that one to $10,000, extend it 1 year as the maintenance bond. Woodcrest 4, they are hoping they were looking at putting the topping down soon. I don't know if that's been done yet or not, but we would recommend an extension of 6 months at the same amount on that one. Buckingham Place, Section 2, Phase 2, kind of the same situation, a 6-month extension at the same amount. And then Villages of Green Tree, Section 3. I did not hear back from that developer. Still some items to be done. They are built out. So I would recommend a 6-month extension there. And then the last one is Rock Springs Plaza Phase 1. This is where some of the landscaping has died, some of that buffer strip, and we've asked them to replace that. They haven't quite done that yet, so we would recommend a 6-month extension on that one. And we'll try and, we're having hopefully soon have some success on a couple other situations in town where we've had that similar situation where we've started doing some enforcement on through our zoning ordinance on that. So we would recommend an extension on that bond though at this time. So that's what we got.
Kevin, with a few of the developments that were 94% or more completed and you didn't hear back from them, could we follow up?
Sure.
Because some of these lists are fairly extensive, and even though maybe extensive, it seems like a lot of it could be taken care of fairly quickly. Could we just follow up and maybe just report out where we're at with those? Because if we're going 6 months, we're going into the middle of winter, and I have a feeling that when we get into the middle of winter, we're going to go another, I would prefer not to see us to go another 6 months because
that gets us into May or so, some of these. Yeah, so if they can't get it done this fall, that puts you at the April, May timeframe when you're trying to get it done, finishing up. So,
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, discussion as far as the bond review? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve staff comments.
I have a motion to approve the bond review report with staff comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Staff comments, other business.
I don't have anything.
Anything from staff out here? Anything from the commission? We stand adjourned.